Well, tomorrow is a holiday that students won't be able to come to school, and the reason why is because all the adults, meaning 18 and older, will have a chance to practice democracy by voting. Okay? Vote means you're going to pick somebody, you're going to pick something. And so we're going to just read about elections and say, why are elections important? Why are elections important? Why is it important to vote? Jacqueline Gorman is the author of this nonfiction book. And it's very important that you do really understand that the nonfiction book has a table of content, has real pictures, and it also has a glossary and an index. Okay, those are kind of some of the characteristics of a nonfiction book. So let's begin reading, and here we go. Chapter 1 is about government by the people. In the 1700s, the country of Great Britain ruled America. Americans couldn't elect or choose their own leaders. The people did not have any say in making laws. Americans decided to fight a war for their freedom. They defeated the British Army and formed the United States of America. And these are some of the people who created something which now we call democracy. The leaders of the United States formed a democracy. A democracy is a government that is run by the people for the people. People hold elections to choose their leaders. They also vote on issues that are important to them. Voting gives people a say in how the country is run. That's practically what it is. So this is what you might see tomorrow if you go to your parents, with your parents to go and vote. Okay? Chapter 2. An important right. You may belong to a club or a group at school. To get things done, you and the other members of the group need to work together. The group decides together on rules and chooses its leaders. Often you make these decisions by voting. Voting is a way for a group to make decisions. And so you make a line based on those decisions and you vote, which is what you're going to do today. Voting is one of the most important rights that Americans have. By voting, Americans take part of their government. They show how they care about their community. Voting gives people a voice in how their town, state, and country are run. That's why we elect. Americans vote for leaders they think will do their best. They also vote on issues that are important to their state or town, which would be the town of Hempstead, in this case, where you belong. Voters may decide when to build new roads or schools. And you might have seen a lot of these. These are signs that tell you we're on election season. Chapter 3. Who can vote? When the United States was formed, many people were not allowed to vote. Almost all voters were white men who owned land. Women, Native Americans, and most African Americans could not vote. People who did not own land did not have the right to vote. And thanks to that, a lot has changed. Over the years, new laws were passed that allowed more people to vote. In 1870, all African Americans, men, gained the right to vote. In 1920, all women gained the right to vote. 4 years later, Native Americans also gained the right to vote. And then voting started to look like this. Okay? Until 1971, a voter had to be at least 21 years old. Today, almost any U.S. citizen who is at least 18 years old can vote. In most states, people have to register or sign up to vote. Chapter 4. This lady is from New York, so that's why I'm highlighting her. What leaders do we elect? Voters elect leaders for their country, state, and town. All voters in the United States can vote for the president and vice president. The president and vice president run as a team. They work in Washington, D.C. Voters elect other leaders who work there too, like a senator and a congressman, or congresswoman too. Voters choose the people who represent them in Congress. Congress is part of the government that makes laws, rules in your case, that you can't break. And if you do, you have to pay your consequences for breaking those laws, which we call laws, but you know them as rules. The two parts of Congress are the Senate and the House of Representatives. There are 100 senators. Each of the 50, that's 20, that's 30, that's 40, 50 states elect 2 senators. There are 435 members of the House of Representatives. States that have more people elect more representatives. In this case, you have Shirley Chisholm, who ran from New York as the first African American woman to be elected to Congress. And then she ran for president as well. This was the old mayor of New York, if you didn't know. The people in each state elect a governor. The governor is the leader of the state government. The voters in each state also vote for members of the state legislature, and the people in the legislature make state laws. This is Alaska's governor back then, Sarah Palin, who was also running for vice president at some time before you were born. Most states are divided into smaller groups called counties. The voters in each county elect leaders who do important county jobs. Voters in many towns and cities elect a mayor. Voters also elect the city and town council. The council makes laws for the city or town. So, where is your school? Your school is located in Uniondale. Uniondale is part of the town of Hempstead. And the part of the town of Hempstead has what it's called a county, because we have 2 in Long Island. One is Suffolk and the other one's Nassau. You are located in Nassau County. So you do have elections running at this moment as county. We also have elections as a state this year. And we have also election on some, not all, senators and House of Representatives in Congress or U.S. The Washington, D.C., District of Columbia. Judges are in charge of courts. The president chooses the judges for the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is the most important court in the country. The president chooses other top judges too. In most states, voters elect judges who run state and town courts. So this is a judge. She's swearing in as a new judge. And of course, her husband is holding the Bible so that she can put her hand over it while she takes what is called an oath, a promise. Chapter 5. When are elections held? Election day is often the first Tuesday in November. In years that end in an even number, such as 2008 and 2010, voters choose leaders for the whole country. Voters elect a president and vice president every 4 years. Senators have to run for election for every 6 years. Members of the House of Representatives run every 2 years. So they're different. They're not all the same. Here's one very old campaign election where Ronald Reagan and Walter Mondale are running for president of the United States, and this was back in the 80s. I was a kid. You weren't even alive. People also vote for state and town leaders on election day. In most states, voters elect a governor for every 4 years. Other states and local leaders are elected in different years in different states. People may also vote an important issue or important issues in their state or local community. So, before they vote, people learn about the candidates. These are people who run for office. People read about the candidates and watch them on TV. Voters pick candidates who feel the same as they do on important issues. And this one that I was telling you about, Ronald Reagan and Walter Mondale, was in 1984. So it was a long time ago because Ronald Reagan is already dead. He died. He was sick back then when he was not president anymore. And so some of the people do remember him very greatly. But we have to continue with other presidents, so it doesn't stay with one. Okay? On election day, voters go to the schools, churches, and other places in their town to vote. All of the candidates are listed on the ballot. Voters pick the candidate they like best. At the end of the day, all the votes are counted. Then the winners are named. Okay? This is how you vote. Voting is important, but not everyone chooses to vote. Only about 6 out of 10 people vote in the election for president. Even fewer people vote in local elections. Everyone should vote so he or she has a voice in how the country is run. Every vote is important. Every vote counts. And we finish with the glossary and, of course, our index. The end. So today you're going to be voting. Pay attention to your teacher as he or she will be walking and talking to you about a ballot that you are going to be voting. Once you hear about your candidates and you get a chance to vote, make your vote heard. Pick the one that you think is the best. Because smart is not something you are. Smart is something you get.